Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another one of my Future Fight Vanguard series. Um, it's kind of funny that I said good morning, because it's actually night in Georgia, at least. I'm actually super tired because I usually don't record videos on the same day that I work because I work like doubles at my job, so I pretty much go in the morning and come back at nighttime. So it can be pretty rough sometimes, but I did promise you guys that we are going to catch up on where our videos are supposed to be right now, so that is what I am doing. But yeah, you guys be sure to check out the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for Cardfight Empire, and also the Patreon if you want to be part of some cool contests, giveaways, polls, etc. Have like a voice on the channel. But yeah, so yeah, well, let's get right into it. Today we're going to be talking about the Great Nature GB8 deck. So we decided to, I tested out a lot of the Great Nature GB8 builds, and this is the one that I liked the most. I've always really liked this concept of Tester Fox, so that's what we're doing. We're doing the Tester Fox Legion, but in the form of a GB8 build. So let's get right into that. Alright, so starting with our grade 3s, we have 4 of the Magic Scientist Tester Fox. What Tester Fox does is it's a Legion card, obviously. We only run 5 grade 3s in this deck, because you can get to your grade 3 like pretty easily, honestly. With Mike Saburo, this grade 1 right here. So running 4 of this is kind of like running 4 more grade 3s in my opinion. So really running quote-unquote 9 grade 3s. But yeah, what Tester Fox does is it legions with Researcher Fox, which is right here. And then it has an ability, it has 2 abilities actually beyond the Legion ability. Its first ability is during your end phase, when your rearguard is put into the drop zone, if this unit's in Legion, you can choose a card from your damage zone and turn it face up. And then if the unit put into the drop zone is a unit with the same name as a unit from your Vanguard circle, meaning that when you're in Legion, like the units that are on your Vanguard circle are Tester Fox and Researcher Fox. So if either of the units retire during the end phase are those cards, you get to draw a card, and then you can choose up to 2 cards from your drop zone and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. So it's really, really good at recycling. Pretty much like keeps you in the game through like the constant advantage that Tester Fox provides you. So it's just a very, very good card, and I love it. We do run 1 Honorary Professor Chat Noir. The reason why I only run 1 of this card is because usually, like, if I really want to ride it that game, I can get it, just like I said with Mike Saburo. So Mike Saburo is kind of like running a, like, +4 to any one of my grade 3s. So I can, like, it makes it that much easier to get to it in the early game. Some games I get to it if I can, and then other games, like, I don't. Like, it's kind of just all dependent on what's going on in that game and if I feel like I need it or not, or if the game state is advancing way too fast to be able to use it. So, what Shadow Noir does is it is a break ride. So, it has a limit break 4 break ride ability that says when a Great Nature unit rides this unit, you choose one of your Vanguards. That unit gets plus 10,000 power, and it also gets an ability, and the ability says when one of your Great Nature Rearguards attacks a Vanguard, you can choose one of your Great Nature Rearguards. That unit gets plus 4,000 until the end of the turn, and then at the end of the turn, you draw a card and retire that unit. So it gains this skill until the end of the turn. So the break ride turns are actually quite strong between the Legion and the break ride. Like, you draw a good amount of cards from it. Also, it has another little 2 side little abilities, which don't really matter as much, but one of the other abilities is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, this unit gets plus 2,000 power until the end of the battle. So it becomes a 13k whenever it's attacking Vanguard. So not bad, not really significant like it used to be back in the days where that mattered, like attacking cross rides and stuff. But nowadays that doesn't really matter. Like pretty much everyone's 11k. Then it also has Lord, so like I was discussing before against the Domination, like If you are against a Mukuro and then you go onto Chat Noir, your opponent cannot dominate your Vanguard. But most of the time you're going to be on Tester Fox anyway, so that doesn't really matter. I also forgot to say Tester Fox's second ability, which is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can choose one of your rear guards and it gets plus 4,000 power. And then at the end of the turn, you retire the unit that you gave power to. So this helps a lot because at a certain point, like using Telescope Rabbit just becomes heavy with cost resources. So you want to be able to use like Tester Fox skill to, you know, pump some power and retire, or your strides that retire as well. Then we have 4 Illusion Scientist Researcher Fox. So what Researcher Fox does is during your end phase, when this card's put into the drop zone from rearguard circle, if your Vanguard's in Legion, you can counterboss 1, and you choose one of your units in your Vanguard circle. You search your deck for one card with the same name as that unit, reveal it to your opponent, and put it into your hand. So when this card dies, basically if you're in Legion, you can search for a Tester Fox or a Researcher Fox. So very, very good card. We run 4 Crayon Tiger. What Great Nature deck ever has not run this card at 4? This card is absolutely amazing. It has a 1 ability and 1 ability only, the only ability it needs, which is Generation Break 1. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if it is boosted, you can counterboss 1, and you choose one of your other rear guards and you stand it, and it gets plus 4,000 power, and then at the end of the turn you draw and you retire that unit. So you basically want to stack a bunch of the draw skills onto like the same rear guards, and you want those rear guards to be like Tester Fox or Researcher Fox, so that when they die you can get like as many pluses as you want, or as many pluses as possible. We do run 4 Lamp Camel. Now this is kind of like a weird tech choice for those of you interested, but I played a lot of games with this deck, and none of the other grade 2s just like really did anything well for me. And when I did Lamp Camel, your counter charge in this deck is enough to like keep up with it. So it gives your opponent some on-hit pressure if you're not able to get to like Researcher Fox, and you have like Crayon Tiger on the board. So you can attack a Vanguard, stack all the triggers onto Lamp Camel, and then like counterboss 2, draw a card whenever. It is kind of heavy, but it works for me, so that's why I did run it at 4. We do run 4 Mini Belly. It is the Stride fodder. Pretty self-explanatory. We want to stride a lot in this deck. 4 Shell Master, just like I was talking about. This deck's pretty counterblast heavy, at least this version. So we do want to have a unflip engine alongside of Tester Fox's unflip. So then we have 4 Loop the Loop Duckbill. So what Duckbill does is during your main phase, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you can choose another one of your Great Nature rearguards and you give it a skill that says during the main phase or during the end phase, when that card is placed into the drop zone, draw a card. So basically just rewarding you for doing more Great Nature stuff. During the end phase, when your unit's retired, you draw a card. So pretty simplistic. Mike Saburo does literally the exact same thing that Duckbill does, except when your unit dies, you get to search a grade 3. So it allows you to, in the early game, like kill your units off, and if you use Mike Saburo's skill on your rearguard, like that dies, then it dies and you get a grade 3 for it. So pretty good. Then we have 1 Telescope Rabbit. I wanted to run Pencil Koala, but Pencil Koala doesn't go off as early, honestly, so we need Telescope Rabbit to be able to run the 5 grade 3 format that we run, because otherwise in the early game we would have no way to get Mike Saburo and the Duckbill loop off, or not loop, but the combo, I guess I should say. We would have no way to get the combo off in the early game, which gets us our grade 3 so consistently. So we did have to run Telescope Rabbit. So Telescope Rabbit has Forerunner, meaning that it moves back when you ride on top of it, and then it has an activation skill that says Counterblast 1 and rest this unit. Then you can choose one of your Great Nature rearguards. That unit gets plus 4,000 power, and then at the end of the turn you return that, or you retire that unit. So not bad at all. Pretty good card. I like it a lot. We have 4 Ruler Chameleon, which is part of our crit trigger lineup. Ruler Chameleon is actually pretty useful because of its skill. So you can counterboss 1 during the end phase when this card's put into the drop zone from the rearguard circle, you can search your deck for a Ruler Chameleon. Now, I know it seems like you're pulling crits out of your deck, but with Tester Fox recycling so much, like, you're really just adding guard to your hand. So I really like that card. Like, I really like it as well. Like, when a card retires and you're in Legion, like, you're gonna countercharge anyways for Tester Fox, so you might as well use the Ruler Chameleon to keep on pace with things. Then we have 4 Triangle Cobra, and just a vanilla crit trigger. 4 Castanet Donkey, it is our draw trigger for the deck, and a Margle clone, which I feel like every clan has one now, at least. But you basically choose one of your Great Nature units, and that unit gets plus 3,000 power in exchange for shoving this card into the soul. Then we have 4 Refugee Spangled. This is our new heal trigger from the Fighters collection. And its skill is when this card is discarded from your hand for the cost to call this new Spangled G-Guard from our G-Zone. If the face-up number of cards in our damage zone is 1 or less, then we can countercharge 1. What this means is that it's also another countercharge engine using our soul this time. Basically, if we use up as many counterblasts as possible and then we go into the new Refugee Spangled or the new Spangled G-Guard, we get to Soul Blast 1 to countercharge 1. So pretty good. Getting into our G-Zone, we have 4 Mana Armor, which I barely ever used, actually, because it just doesn't, like, I added 4 originally because it flips itself, but it just doesn't mesh with this deck that great, in my opinion. Like, unless you're just surprised going for a kill turn on your opponent, and you know that they don't have, a lot of grade 0s in their hand. So what Mana Armor does is it's an activation skill that says Counterblast 1, choose a face down Mana Armor from your G-Zone and turn it face up. And if the number of cards in your G-Zone is 2 or more, then you get to choose 2 of your rear guards. And until the end of the turn, they get plus 4,000 power and an ability. The ability says when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if the unit's power is 20,000 or more, which is including boost, by the way, guys. Until the end of that battle, your opponent cannot guard or with grade 1 or higher from their hand. So pretty good card. Like, guard restrict on your rear guard seems good, especially when you have a Crayon Tiger on the board and you get 3 attacks with guard restrict, essentially. Then we have 1 Cathpaloob, because we do run Chat Noir in this deck, so it's kind of our first stride when we're on Chat Noir and not on Tester Fox. Basically, its ability is the Break Ride ability with a Counterblast included. So whenever your rearguard attacks a Vanguard, if you have a heart card with Honorary Professor in its name, you can Counterblast 1, and if you do, choose up to one of your rearguards, and it gets plus 4,000 power, and then at the end of the turn, you draw a card and retire that unit. So it can get pretty counterblast heavy between this, but like I said, when you go into the Legion later, you start like really unflipping and doing all these countercharging. So it turns out to not be a big deal after all. We do run 1 Hemthurs. I might have run more than this, more of this card if I had the chance, but I decided to just go with 1 because G-Zone space was kind of tight with me wanting to do 4 Mana Armor. So at the end of the battle that this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 and choose one of your rear guards, and it gets plus 4,000 power. Then you can have it gain another 4,000 power if you want, which I pretty much always have the rear guard that I choose gain 8 because I want the unit to retire at the end of the turn. And if you do, that unit retires at the end of the turn, and if the chosen unit's power is 20,000 or more, you draw a card. Now, a specific way that this card is ruled or worded that confuses a lot of people is Hemthurs, the skill, like to draw a card if the unit's power is 20,000 or more, that's immediately after Hemthurs is activated. So if your unit like pumps itself or anything like that, or it retires during the end phase and it was 20,000 or more, you do not get to draw then. You can only draw when you're using Hemthurs skill. So I just wanted to clear that up for a lot of people. Then we have 1 Omniscience Dragon Fernageist. So what Fernageist does is, I wish this card flipped G-Zone units, but I guess that would be kind of broken. But it has 2 abilities. The first one is it gets plus 4,000 power continuously for each of your rear guards. So pretty much if we have a full board, it gets plus 20k. So pretty solid. It becomes a really big attacker. And then the Generation Break 3 ability is Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. When this card is put into the G zone from Vanguard Circle, we can pay the cost. And if we do, we choose all of our rear guards and retire them. And for each unit chosen with this effect that gets retired, we draw a card, countercharge 1, soul charge 1. So if we have 5 units and we use Guys, at the end of the turn, we would get rid of all 5. Then we draw 5, countercharge 5, and soul charge 5. So this is another reason why your countercharge engine is so good. Like, Guys is just an amazing card as a one-of. We do run one of Fonk. Basically protects you from like the bad matchups, like the really bad matchups. Narukami, Kagero, like stuff that can really interfere with you during your turn. So what it does is you counterblast 1 and choose a card from your G zone and turn it face up. Then you can choose any number of your rear guards until the end of the turn. They get the ability to not be retired by card effects. And then each rear guard chosen with this effect gets plus 4,000, or for each rear guard chosen with this effect, a Fonk itself gets 4,000 power. So again, if you choose 5, it's just like Guys, it will go up by 20k. So pretty solid. Obviously, since this is a GB8 deck, we run one of the GB8, which is Sahasrara. I don't know. That's such a weird name. I like to just call it Savira. That's what I call it most of the time. But what Savira does is it has an axe skill that you can use as many times as you want during the main phase. That says the cost is discarding 2 cards from your hand. So if you discard 2 cards from your hand, you can choose up to 5 of your rear guards, and then they get plus 10,000 power. And then they all die at the end phase. And if the number of cards in our hand is 1 or less after using this ability, then our Vanguard gets plus 40,000 power and a critical. So this card becomes so good in a lot of matchups. Like, you can just straight up end the game. Like, if you have, I don't know, 6 cards in your hand, you can discard all 6 and give all your rear guards 30k, and then give your Vanguard 40k and a critical. And if you have like a Crayon Tiger, like, that's pretty tough for your opponent to block all of that, to be honest. Then we have one Kilmatika. I really didn't use Kilmatika either because this deck's so naturally grindy, but it is a success unit. Success, for those of you who don't know or are not aware, is the mechanic for Great Nature. Success focuses around a rear guard touching a certain power threshold. So it will usually say success and then a number that you have to meet or exceed for this for success to be active on your field. So this card is success 25, meaning that we would have to get a rear guard to 25,000 power at any point. So if we even do it when we boost our rear guard, if it goes up to 25k, that still counts. So when this unit becomes successful, you can choose up to 4 cards from your drop zone, put them on the bottom of your deck in any order, and then if you put 4 cards back, you get to choose one of your rear guards. It gets plus 4,000 power, and then at the end of the turn, you draw 1 unit, or you draw a card, and you retire that card that you gave plus 4,000 to. So pretty regular. Great Nature skill really allows you to recycle a lot. So we do run once a breeze in case our opponent tries to jank us, and then we run 2 Spangled. So oh, sorry guys, let me get some water. My throat's so dry. Yeah, so like I was saying, a interesting combo with Spangled is some people like to do the double Spangled play, where you double G-Guard with 2 Spangleds, and then you use the skill to... So let me explain what the skill does first. So when this unit is placed in the guard circle, you can counterblast 1 and flip a G-Guardian face up in your G-Zone. Then if you do, you choose any number of your grade 3 or less Guardians, and then until the end of the battle, they get a skill that says when this unit's retired from the guard circle, draw a card. So what this means is that, which I actually just thought about, like, Dimension Please, if they bust your Guardian while you're on this, like, it's pretty funny because you'll still draw a card because it's being retired from the guard circle. But what you do with the Spangled is you put let's say you put your entire hand down onto the guard circle except for 2 heal triggers, and then you double Spangled. You choose all of those cards with the ability of both Spangles, and then you draw double the cards that you had in your hand So sometimes it can help you really dig for your deck, like reach GB8 really fast and do some really ham and cheese things to your opponent, so to speak. You can go ham and cheese. But our other G guards are like all of the Great Nature G guards are pretty good in my opinion. Like they don't have like a non-solid G guard in my opinion, but they have. We're running 2 Ardillo in this build. Ardillo is basically when it's placed on guard circle, we can choose any number of our rear guards and retire them. And if the number of open rear guard circles on our field is 3 or more, it gets plus 10,000 shield. So we basically kill units until we have 3 spots empty, or if we have 3 spots empty already, like it's pretty good already because we don't have to retire any to get its 36k. Then we run 1 Al Mirage. So what Al Mirage does is when this unit is placed on guard circle, we Soul Blast 1, and if we do, we can choose up to 2 cards from our hand, call them to rear guard circle, and we choose up to 4 of our rear guards, and they get resist, and the unit cannot be retired even if it is hit. So what this means is that you're protecting your rear guards infinitely, and they cannot leave the board by any means once you use Al Mirage to do it. So very good card. Like you can use it against an Arcami if they slip up and attack with Vanguard first or something like that, and protect all your rear guards. And sometimes it really screws with your opponent and screws them over. But with that being said, let's get right into the games here. So we're gonna load our Tester Fox GB8. Alright, so it looks like first game we're playing against Narukami, which is interesting because I was just speaking about this, but not interesting because I'm pretty sure you guys have seen me play against Narukami enough. But I start the game, or sorry, he starts, I attack, and I don't get a trigger, but we're getting to the early game and I'm rushing him super hard. We already have a grade 3, so we don't have to worry about that. However, he does like stay on grade 2. So we're able to just go into Chat Noir here and go into Sabriz. So we limp Kimball him into the rear guard Shatura, and then we attack his Vanguard and attack his Vanguard again. He goes into Sparking and strides into VMAX, which is pretty interesting, but he can't really do much else, I guess. He attacks my rear guard for 15. I decide to let it go. And then he attacks my Vanguard for 36. I let that one go as well. And he does check a heal and a crit, which is pretty lucky for him. But we do break ride off of it. So we play a bunch of cards so that we can force Legion, because I determined that it was important against Narukami because I didn't want to have a drop zone basically. But I do attack with my PG. And then at the end phase, I retire the cards and I put the cards back from my drop zone to my deck and I search. So we do have 3 heal triggers in our hand. Our opponent decides not to stride, so that was pretty surprising on his part. And he decides to bind our card on the field, which is not a huge big deal at all. We do just normal guard because we recycle a lot in this deck, so it wasn't really a big deal to throw down a heal just to guard. So we normal guarded with the heal twice because we just didn't want to waste resources. But we are GB3, so we do go into Fernageist. We attack his rear guard and then attack his Vanguard. And we check 3 cards and 1 is a crit trigger. And then he does G-Guardian into the Thunderstrike G-Guardian. We retire our cards. And we draw 1, countercharge 1, and soul charge 1 for every card. And then we use the ability of our Legion to put back 4 cards, draw 2 cards, and then get 2 cards to our hand. So pretty good, like, that we're ending every turn without a field, because this is kind of where Narukami, like, focuses on crushing you if you have, like, a field and a drop zone. So he goes into V-Buster here. We just choose a double guard. And we do not have a PG here, which is pretty unfortunate, but here's what we do. We guard with our entire hand as much as we can, and then we guard with Spangled. So we should have actually thrown out our grade 3s as well, but it was actually fine doing it this way, because we were able to draw PG off of Spangled skill. So then we stride again. This time we went into Himthers. We play a Crayon Tiger and Duckbill. Like, we use all the skills on Fox, basically. We do, yeah, and then he just no-guards this, which I totally wasn't expecting. I was expecting him to put up more of a fight. But he does no-guard, and I check a crit, putting the crit power to my Vanguard. And he would have 6 damage healed, but however, I did crit him, so he has to take 2 damage, and he loses the game off of that. So during that game, I was expecting like more of a fight, but that's kind of like always the case with Narukami. Like, you expect more of a fight out of them, and they just don't have the hand to keep up the good fight. So they always end up no-guarding at weird times that you think that they have like a good hand or something. Like, they just don't have a good hand. Loading our Tester Fox GB8 2 game. This time it seems like we're playing against Genesis, which is the Amaruta deck, looks like. And then, so we're just going through the early game right here. I am actually going to plug in my computer so that it doesn't die while I'm doing this recording, because my computer wasn't plugged in. So you guys can just like watch the game as things are going on while I prevent my computer from having a small heart attack or something like that. Whatever the equivalent to a computer dying is called. One of those. So, yeah. So he is going to Amaruta, and he attacks us and gets a heal, which I remember thinking, like, it's kind of already, like, a hard grind matchup, because as far as, like, grinding, like, Genesis can match us in the grind game with Dreaming Dragon, but eventually we get to the point with Tester Fox where we're out grinding them with triggers, because Tester Fox allows you to just choose 2 cards and put back cards every single turn. And so if the cards I'm putting back are always just triggers, it's a lot more pressuring to my opponent than what they can do to me, because Dreaming Dragon just makes them put back all of their cards, vanillas and triggers. So they're just pretty much refreshing their deck while I am adding, like, while I am thinning my deck and adding triggers back to my deck at the same time. So yeah, it's a pretty good strat in my opinion. Like, that's why Tester Fox is like one of my favorite cards, like, actually in the game. Like, I actually have so much fun when I'm playing Tester Fox, because, which is funny because I've never actually owned Great Nature in real life. I've just played other people's Great Nature decks. But I like it a lot. I think it's a very, very solid card. And it fits my playstyle just so well. Like, it's so solid, guys. But yeah, getting back into the game here. I was telling my opponent that they forgot the Lading Soul Charge, because he was using Revelation a lot. I guess he forgot. So he does go into tier skill here. So he attacks us for 20. And then I guard with as much as I can from my hand and leave a stride fodder. And then I use the new G-Guardian skill, because I didn't want to get rid of a heal to guard, but I did want to draw cards as well. So then I PG his Vanguard, and he checks a crit trigger, and I kind of forgot that, like, every time he soul charges 3, that Kotonoha would get power. But he attacks for 36, and we only have 31k guard in our hand, so we just take it, and we end up losing that one, unfortunately, because I miscalculated. But I guess that was on me, not on the deck, so, you know. I guess it's kind of like random draw off the G-Guardian too. Like, if you don't have a double G-Guardian, like, it's kind of just a draw, like, but in the form of doing it a lot. So you just, like, kind of refresh your hand with what's in your deck, and you hope that's what's in your deck is good. But for the last game, we were playing against Chaos Breaker or Link Joker, like what I assume to be Chaos Breaker. So we rush them as usual. Like usually rushing is not a good strategy against Link Joker, but I want to get them to kind of high damage so that we can have a little fun with them, so to speak, with great nature mechanics. So I'm able to check a draw trigger when I ride a grade 3. He does have to G-assist and whiff his grade 3, which is pretty advantageous for me. But yeah, I no guard in the hopes that he would get a crit and I could Sabreeze him, but he didn't. So I'm able to just, you know, get rid of my rear guards every turn and attack him, putting in pressure and searching my grade 3s. He does draw a Chaos Breaker and discard 3 cards to stride. 2 of those being PGs and 1 of them being the Limit Break Enabler, so that was kind of awful for him. But he uses Chaos Universe, makes me lock a card from my hand, which I do choose Castanet Donkey. And then he does go for the crit trigger skill off of his starter, so he locks my back row unit as well. And I'm able to Cat Palug because I really just want some more advantage here. I didn't want to break ride here because I wouldn't be getting maximum advantage or potential out of it, which is kind of what I really wanted, to be honest. So he did use skill to discard 2 of my units, and then he strode into Chaos Universe again. And then he chose my units and locked them. I did PG. And then I did choose to break right here because I realized that he wasn't going to give me the potential to pretty much max limit break, so I might as well do it now. So I did attack him, and I added 4K to this Tester Fox on the side. And then he uses Demon Maxwell for a no pass. I do check a heal, and I give the power to my rear guard, and then I attack him. I draw 2 cards, and then I use the skill of Tester Fox to put some cards back. And then he strides into Big Crunch, locks my 2 units. Then he photons 1 of my units, and then he irons 1 of my units. So he pretty much wanted me to have no units. So, you know, I was like, you got it, fam. But he does crit. Thank goodness he didn't double crit, because I feel like Chaos Breaker players are known for doing that. We do use 2 cards of stride here, and we call him Thirst. We are able to... he goes into Demon Maxwell for a 46k, but honestly, he has to lock a unit with Demon Maxwell in the back row. So we do check triple critical and then add 8k to add to our Researcher Fox. So Researcher Fox's skill, we unflip 1, we draw 1, we countercharge, and then we search. So he uses the Limit Break to get rid of 1 of our cards. He strides into the GB8. And then he discards for the GB8 to make me play 2 cards, which is kind of weird. Like, I don't know. It was just really awkward, to be honest. But I do G-Guard with the new G-Guardian. So he checks 3. He doesn't get the checks. And then I stride into Fernageist. And I attack his rear guard. And he was kind of like, oh, okay, because, you know, clearly I can't guard. And maybe it was scummy of me to do, but I really wanted to try out my GB8. So I attacked his rear guard so that I could GB8 him in the following turn. But yeah, he pretty much asked me later, he's like, I have to ask, like, why did you attack my rear guard? I was like, pro strats or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, he big crunches my rear guard circle, and then he calls all the cards remaining to his hand. We do guard it quite easily with Ardello, and we get rid of 3 cards. And then we Ardello again for a pretty much super no pass. He does check 3 units. And then I draw and I stride into the GB8. Unfortunately, we don't have 2 rearguard circles to use it fully. But the reason why we play these 2 researcher foxes here, especially this one behind our Vanguard circle, is because at the end phase, everything retires, which would mean with Vera, like, everything gets better. Like, but yeah, I GB8'd and then I was gonna deck out if I drove check, so I just decided to use skill to put cards back because they would retire. So he strides into an amnesty. So this game went a lot longer than like I intended it to, just because I decided to attack his rearguard that time, which is pretty funny. But like, I don't know, like I'm clearly in the safe zone, like it's fine. But I do ride Tesser Fox and Legion, and then he's pretty fed up with me, I guess, because he said, "Oh my God, just attack." And I was wondering why my Vanguard wasn't attacking for 20, but it's because I Legion 2 grade 3s together, because like all the Legions look the same. Which is kind of funny that he told me like just attack, but like he didn't take the attack, like he just guarded it. I mean, I do have some respect for him in doing that. He does go into a second copy of the GB8, which I didn't even know that he had, to be honest, but he just decides to say, screw it, and attack my Vanguard, and I no guard, and that makes him deck out, because he only had 3 cards in his deck to check. So, yeah, that ends up being the last game that we played. But, yeah, most of the time in this deck, like, you only make it to GB8 if you try to turbo into it. So, we didn't purposefully try to turbo a bunch of times. So, it was neither here nor there. Like, it was kind of just like, you know, a fun GB8. But that GB8, if you do make it to it, is very, very swole. If your opponent's at 5 damage and you have, like, a Crayon Tiger on the field, like, that's busted. But, yeah, guys, that has been the Great Nature GB8 deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave me a like. It counts for a lot more than you guys think. So like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe, check out Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. And with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video.